Greetings folks, my name is Bob, and this is the GS66 Stealth featuring the RTX 3070. Ultimately, that's probably why you are here. Now, this is a factory-sealed unit sent over from Zetec PC. They're an authorized reseller, and they do lots of thermal pastes and modifications to improve thermal performance on their laptops, as well as just changing up the SKUs as far as memory and storage. The list goes on, very detailed. Links in the description below. This is a good company. However, if you want to see the thermal performance on this particular laptop with Phobia Nanogrease, then check out Gizmo Slip Tech, as he will be reviewing this chassis with aftermarket thermal interface material sent over from Zetec PC. So let's just go right into the good stuff. Let me show you what I want you to see, what you want to see, and if you're happy with that and you're actually interested in this laptop, then we'll review the rest of this chassis. Let's rock and roll. Straight away, I want to showcase stock i7 8-core CPU thermal performance using Ada64. Now, this closely represents thermals during a video render. Stock thermal performance here can peak into the upper 90s, and core temp uniformity shows around an 8 degrees Celsius differential. Now compare this to Zetec PC and their applied Phobia Nanogrease testing on the GS66. Thermals seem improved, but what's equally as important is the core temperature differential. Nice result, Zetec, and my factory-sealed GS66 has random temperature spikes on its CPU during games. With that said, their tests show core speed of around 3 GHz, and mine after a 10-minute run of Ada64 was around 3.4 GHz. GPU performance. This RTX 3070 is an 80-watt part that will dynamically boost to 95 watts depending on the CPU wattage. I made a very detailed video about this, and it would be unwise to miss. It'll answer questions you didn't even ask. There's no longer any indication of laptop GPU performance expectations based on names like Max-Q or Max-P. NVIDIA is calling their laptop 3000 series GPUs just that, laptop GPU. Testing methods I have been using for years are more important than ever, as video reviews will help educate the consumer. Let's begin with dynamic boost. The GPU will run no higher than 80 watts when this CPU is at 40 watts or greater. Once the CPU reaches 35 watts, the GPU can boost up to 90 watts. If the CPU is at 30 watts or less, the GPU will boost up to its full 95 watts. Here's where things get flaky for the consumer. Take benchmarks as an example. These are designed to individually load the CPU and GPU separately before combining the two. Many will associate graphics score to gaming performance, aka frame rate. So the graphics scores of Firestrike and TimeSpy are that of a 95-watt RTX 3070. Great scores, by the way. Reality can be far different, as the CPU tends to require more than 30 watts of power to drive the GPU saturation up on Full HD and Quad HD resolutions. This means you may see your GPU max out around 80 watts in many titles. Titles like Cyberpunk 2077 tend to favor the GPU, but the City and its NPCs will definitely consume some of that CPU wattage, showcasing the dynamic boost fluctuation in action. With ray tracing and balanced DLSS, this RTX 3070 performs about 25 to 30% better versus a 90-watt 2070 Super, and that's been my typical experience during gaming actually. Meanwhile, titles that are light on the CPU power may enjoy the full 95-watt 3070 performance. Notice how great the GPU thermal performance is? Now, this is the byproduct of a dual-fan GPU cooler and a 220-watt desktop 3070 cut down to 80 to 95 watts, along with a 15% CUDA core reduction. This makes for some badass thermal efficiency. Of course, that puts the laptop 3070 anywhere between 30 and 40% behind the desktop, but for a laptop, this is really, really good. All gaming and benchmarks were run with maximum fans, and this takes me to my first gripe: fan control. MSI made it too difficult to locate and adjust the fan curve within their software. It doesn't need to be this complicated. Furthermore, out-of-the-box idle fan acoustics are inconsistent. It's either audible or obnoxious. This can be addressed within their software, but this could have been better dialed in from the factory. As of right now, that improvement will come from its user. Making all this happen is the 8-core i7 10870H RTX 3070, dual channel memory at 3200 MHz, there's 2 M.2 slots for storage, and the latest Wi-Fi 6 card. The 99.9 watt-hour battery in hybrid mode, 50% brightness, and keyboard lighting disabled was good for around 8.5 hours at idle, 5 to 6.5 hours light use, and 2.5 to 3 hours editing video. Dedicated mode is also available, switchable within the software. That's right, this GS66 has a MUX switch. Battery life here is poor as the NVIDIA GPU is running the display, but gaming performance here tends to be favorable. I talked about this in a separate video discussing why your next gaming laptop should have a MUX switch. Nice to see this MSI, thank you. Moving on to the chassis, it's aluminum, weighs about 4.75 pounds, it looks very high-end, but it creaks on the bottom, which I've been notified by many GS Stealth owners over the years that this is just a thing, and it leaves fingerprints like no other. I have microfiber cloths all over, so I'm good. The display is Full HD at 300Hz with 98% standard RGB and 76% Adobe RGB at 300 nits. It's a good panel for the hardware, but going into 2021, I was hoping to see 400 and 500 nit displays. Now, port selection is nice, but placement is awful. Left side has a USB 3, HDMI, USB-C, and the barrel power port that uses the typical Chicone 230 watt power supply unit. The right side has a local area network, 2 USB 3s, Thunderbolt 3, and the combo headphone mic port. Having the LAN and headphone jack on the right may cause awkward ergonomics. Those ports typically belong anywhere but here. One-hand opening is a cinch, and Windows Hello via IR camera is quick. The webcam and mic sound like this. Okay, 720p webcam and microphone. It wants to just pick up the fan idle noise, all right? Video quality, it's decent. And of course, we're on battery here, right? The power supply plug is right down there. We're always doing this on battery, but man, that sound, just listen to this, listen. Yeah, I know, you probably already fast-forwarded by now, so definitely picks up some audio that I'm not a fan of, no pun intended. The wide Microsoft Precision touchpad is made of glass and feels great. The per-key RGB keyboard has some of the shallowest key travel on a gaming laptop I've tested since the Dell 7577. It's funny because I typically prefer more travel, but my typing efficiency on keyboards like this are always superior. Perhaps MSI knows me better than I do. The layout is a little unorthodox, but I like how MSI uses the function key despite its location. Holding this down highlights the function keys. They've been doing this for a while, but I still think it's slick. Before heading to my conclusion, the Dana Audio top-firing stereo speakers have good volume. Sound quality, on the other hand, is average at best and failed DPC latency tests for real-time audio enthusiasts. Now, this was a non-issue per my use, which was typically gaming. Have a listen. Okay, so clearly a very powerful, thin and light laptop, and I like where the performance is at. I like where the thermal performance is at on the GPU. Of course, aftermarket thermal interface material from Zetek seems to have cleared up the core uniformity as well as lowering temperatures, and I think that's something that at least my particular unit could certainly benefit from. The chassis was a little creaky, the fan noise at idle, and just the adjustability within the software was a bit of an ear sore, and ultimately, when it comes down to bang per buck, these are quite expensive, so it's going to be ultimately up to you if you think you find value in a thin and light chassis like this, because this thing is bringing some serious sweet specs, large battery, awesome screen. It's a nice laptop. Is it nice to you? I don't know. Let me know in the comments section below. Links in the description for everything we talked about today. Gizmo Slip Tech reviewed this with the Phobia Nanogrease thermal interface material. I'm Bob of All Trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Please be sure to watch the dynamic boost video. You'll be ahead of the curve understanding how this works as you watch other videos from your favorite creators.